Hey guys, this is Hector from the Insert Name FC podcast here to tell you guys about Candidips. It is a great tasting, superior alternative to traditional dip using CBD in a way that is radical, enjoyable, and effective. It comes in 5 core flavors: wintergreen, mint, citrus, mango, and American spice. Candidips CBD is the new evolution in dip, allowing guys to enjoy great, long-lasting taste without the downsides. If you guys want to go ahead and try them out, use the code BellyUp20 at CanadipCBD.com. Once again, BellyUp20 at CanadipCBD.com, and you'll get yourself 20% off your purchase. Thank you again for Canadips for being a great partner of BellyUpSports. AC Milan sacking Paulo Fonseca after 6 months in charge of the club. But if you guys are fully aware, and I mean, literally last episode we talked about AC Milan, where they at right now on the table. But just a quick reminder, they're currently 8th in the table in Serie A with 7 wins, 6 draws, and 4 losses. 26 goals, 17 goals allowed, goal differential of 9 goals. Some of their key contributors are Christian Pulisic with 15 goal contributions, and Reinders and Lau with 12 goal contributions apiece. Um, what's going on with Milan, man? I feel like the term is they let a lot of wins become draws.
Yeah, I mean, in a lot of ways, Americans will choose to focus on the positive and the fact that despite how mid they've been this season, Pulisic is still performing, right? So he's now very much a go-to guy for Milan, which is really cool to see and say based on the history of this historic club. But you just said it right there, right? They're 8th, literally a mid side. I don't know if it warranted Fonseca being sacked after 6 months. Like, when you really think about it, was it all him? Were there not tons of moments we could point to where the players just let him down? Um, I don't know. I think it's harsh in my opinion. But with that said, they really tried to correct this, and we'll see if they overcorrected with GolzTV. Like, I don't know if the majority of big name players on Milan are prepared for life under this manager. If you look at the previous teams that he's managed, they almost feel like a carbon copy version of who he is as a manager, his brand. Very much like Atletico Madrid in the sense that they all feel very Simeone-esque, right? In how they play. They can be world-class talent, but they still feel and play that way. Um, so yeah, man, I think we'll see what happens. I do rate him as a manager to an extent. Like I do think, hey, he came from Porto. His last couple Porto sides, last couple years have been interesting. I know as an Arsenal, we know as an Arsenal fans, right? Like we've played them in the Champions League. Um, yeah, man, they're interesting. They're an interesting side. So we'll see how Milan look. I expect a little more of a dog mentality now with this new manager.
Yeah, and I think kind of speaking about Christian Pulisic, a guy that benefited from AC Milan, even though not a great time, not the best of flexes to have. If you're Christian Pulisic, say you're the best player on AC Milan. But it just seems like everyone's just been off. You expect more from Rafael Leao. You expect more from certain players. The back line has been a letdown, which is surprising because you look at that back line, you think that's a should be a pretty solid back line, especially with the goalkeeper that you have in Milan. All the things should be going in the right direction for AC Milan, a team that has high aspirations of returning to be one of the perennials of the Serie A, and haven't been really able to replicate what they were able to do that one year that they did win the Serie A. And I think it also goes into factors because of Inter Milan also having their return. Um, and now Conte, who is just the mastermind of Serie A, being able to do well with his Napoli side, and Atalanta just being the only team that has less draws than everybody else. So I think that there's a lot of factors going into it. I don't think that AC Milan is necessarily out of it. That's why I'm kind of shocked that Fonseca was even considered to be sacked. I think that there was a lot of factors coming into play. I think that there was rumors about him possibly losing the locker room also as well. It's hard to keep a guy when the locker room really has wants nothing to do with him. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's not great.
Yeah, and I will also say this. To me, Milan feels like a side that has lots of good young talent, right? And in several cases, superstars. Rafael Leao, Theo Hernandez, right? Like those guys, Christian Pulisic in his own right, for sure. If anything, their stocks went up. And I think it's a good thing for Milan right now because new manager comes in. Maybe the locker room was an issue, not just because Fonseca lost it, but maybe because there's not a one true leader in that locker room to rally everyone, right? There's not a super alpha vocal leader that's kind of there to rally the troops. So maybe they need a little bit of an overhaul, right? Get some big money outgoings done in the transfer market. It doesn't have to be January, right? This summer. But if this new manager again gets a chance to build Milan in his side, I mean, who knows, man? They're probably right back on that charge of top four, I think, right? If he has players that are fully bought into his system and embrace his mentality. Just a very tough Milan team physically, the way that they play, their mentality around the game. It'd be interesting, man. It'd be very different from what we've seen in recent years.
Yeah, and obviously we got to see a little bit of the new Milan, if you will, which is that victory against Juventus in the take it with a grain of salt. Obviously, it's a Super Cup, but I mean it is a semifinal. It was against a rival like Juventus, also a team kind of having their own struggles in some sense as well. And another team that maybe if you're an American, you're happy to see that your guys are excelling, but then you look, context wise, probably not. Once again, maybe not the best of flexes, um, but you go into this 2-1 win. For Christian Pulisic scores a goal. It was a penalty, but still, it's great that he's being confident enough to take control of being that penalty kick taker. But as well, Musa forcing an own goal. That there's some positive to take from it, and I think if you're at least a U.S. men's national team fan, you at least have some sort of sigh of relief that you're you're hoping to see Pulisic and Musa still being featured on this Milan side, which I think maybe we got some sort of answer from that, or uh maybe Sergio maybe not wants to tinker too much just yet and just went in with what is usually expected from this AC Milan team.
Yeah. And again, he may rely on Pulisic, moving forward, right? Just because of how he performs, for the fact that he's not a huge personality to deal with in the locker room, right? He's one of those leaders, I think, just leads by example. And the same case for the U.S. men's national team. And so there's a lot of good you could take from this game too, even if you're a Juve fan, even if you're pulling for Weston, right? And by the way, did you see that little move he had on Pulisic, bro? It was
Very
just again,
cheeky.
yeah, very cheeky. It was just a good game all the way around. If you're a USMNT fan, I think, right? Somebody had to win, somebody had to lose. We got a chance to see this manager. This final is a big, big chance for a new manager to get a trophy right away, and right away offer something of value to the club that they can use as a springboard for hopefully the second half of the season. You're not going to catch, in my opinion, Napoli. I think it'd be insane to even get close to that, right? But between them and top four, there's 7 points. You just never know what can happen. So it's still definitely possible. And if this new man gets a trophy, you just never know.
Yeah, and I mean that Super Cup final is going to be against Inter Milan, so we're going to have a Milan derby for a trophy, and I think that's um and I mean that's his former club. He played at Inter Milan, so I'm sure that there's going to be storylines to be written if you're in the Italian media. It's going to be a fun one, I think. And I've said my things about Super Cups, and they do have their value. I think in this scenario, it has its value because you have a new coach. You want to make sure that they're on heading in the right direction. Funny enough, I mean, Hop, if you listen to this podcast earlier, you hear Hoffit talking about Barcelona and how Barcelona right now are in a scenario where they can take a Super Cup as a positive and push it onto the second half of the season. So and I didn't disagree to it, even though I went on a whole rant about the Super Cup. But it's just I'm not gonna call it a treble or a double worthy trophy to flex. That's just me. But I do see the importance, especially with the weirdly enough having these trophies now in the halfway point of the season versus having it before the season, kind of how the English Premier League does with the FA Community Shield, and I think Bundesliga as well. But I mean, seeing it like this is kind of like their, all right, we just came back from break. Let's get this tournament going. Let's get back in form and then have a good second half of the season. But yeah, Milan is not far away from a Champions League spot. They can turn things around. Like I said, they just had the issue of just not being able to finish matches to secure 3 points. And, had they were able to turn those draws into wins, this could be a different story for AC Milan. And Fonseca probably would have a safer seat, probably still have his seat in the table. But I think for Sergio, which is funny enough, another Portuguese league coach leaving their team halfway through the season to to join up. a club that just needs a manager now.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, at some point you figured he'd leave Porto. I just felt like they were perfect for each other. Like at every level. That's exactly the type of manager I think Porto. It's not Mourinho-esque from, '04, right? It's because he had a legitimately like a crazy when they were put pieced together, underrated, young, fantastic team. Porto's teams now are just like dog mentality, right? And they're not going to make anything easy for you. If Milan embraces that mentality through and through, if Pulisic embraces that mentality through and through, it only also benefits the U.S. men's national team. So, I not that I think he's soft or doesn't, shies away from being aggressive. He's had his moments 1,000%, but there's a difference between that and like being that guy, right? The enforcer on the pitch to an extent, or at least having that mentality, sticking up for your teammates, right? Like dying for everybody on the pitch. I don't know if Kotenchai will do that with everyone, but for those who buy into his mentality, man, Milan has a shot to rectify the rest of the season, even if they don't win the final. Because Inter, to me, clearly is the better team. But I mean, it's a cup final. Anything can happen.